My name is Francesco Anesi, and I will be your master of ceremony for the next 2 days. Perfection is the enemy of the good. Le mieux, c'est l'ennemi du bien, as the French philosopher Voltaire would say. So let me ask you for your collaboration and for a little bit of your patience, and you might discover something new, a quote, a perspective, a book recommendation. So, let me see if I manage. The next slide, yes, I manage. I invite you to think laterally, to think creatively, and to be inspired by our speakers, by Smart Cities and Sport, and by Copenhagen 2022. You will see here an application of lateral thinking, and I invite you to apply those frameworks to the time we're living, and we're of course living times of radical uncertainty. I submit to you my 7 rules, and I will be fast. So my first rule is I will try to do whatever it takes, as Mario Draghi famously said. But before he became Prime Minister, he wrote a piece on the Financial Times saying, "We face a war against coronavirus and we must mobilize accordingly." That is still true today. What is not true today is what Machiavelli said, "The end justifies the means." He actually never said it or wrote it. So let us try to avoid distortions and cultural traps. Let us try to be inspired by the Italian fencer and Paralympic champion Bebe Vio, who said, "If it seems impossible, then it can be done." It should be an inspiration and a lesson to us all. I will try to be quick and fast and time conscious, but we are a team, so we either win it or lose it together. I will try to inspire you as my brother, my Olympic brother, did to me in Turin 2006 when he won the gold medal. But the true power of inspiration really comes and originates from the summit 2021, the summit itself, and Copenhagen 2021. So, as a tribute to Copenhagen, let me quote Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher who was born and who died in this very city. Life can be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. And forwards we go with and we've been reminded by the wonderful speech by President Bach that extraordinary times call for extraordinary leadership. Of course, the revision of the Olympic motto was explained strategically and beautifully as a symbol of solidarity by President Bach: faster, higher, stronger, together. But before I move on to my 7th rule, let me do some housekeeping. Let me ask you to switch your mobile phone to silent. Let me ask you to look at the agenda and think in perspective. Make use of the Delegate app, and I will try with my interludes to add a few, let's say, lateral thinking to the summit. So my 7th rule is really this. Let me invite you, all participants, to stand on the shoulder of our speakers and look further together. I promised Melanie to be quick, so I will be very quick. We're moving straight into the session, Highlight on Paris 2024, Building the Health Legacy of the Future Games. But before we do so, let me add a final quote and this slide. I even learned how to use the slide now. It's wonderful. So the quote is by Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities, written in 1859. It was the best of time, it was the worst of time. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of life, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, we had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven, we were all going direct the other way. And the two revolutionary cities that Charles Dickens is referring to are London, on the one hand, and Paris, of course. So, without further ado, let me remind you of the framework that were quoted also in the previous session, the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations, the legacy strategic approach of the International Olympic Committee, and of course I added here also the World Health Organization, getting people more active people for a healthier world, which are some bits and pieces that will be part as a framework of the general discussion. So, without further ado, let me kindly invite, and let me ask you for a round of applause, not for me and my presentation, but mostly, for Tania Braga, the head of legacy of the International Olympic Committee, and let me invite her on the stage as I finish my first job, and we will be meeting later. Tania, the floor is yours, please.
Hello. Thank you, Francesco. Good morning, everyone. I'm not going to the podium because it's much higher than me, and you'll be able only to see my forehead, so I stay here. So let's move forward, look at the future, and we're very lucky today to be receiving two guests for this conversation. First one is Marie Barsac. She is the Executive Director of Impact and Legacy for Paris 2024 Organizing Committee of the Olympic and Paralympic Games. So it's a pleasure to have Marie today. And Stephen Whittings from the Technical Officer at WHO Europe Office for the Prevention and Control of Non-Communicable Diseases. It's a very long title, but I think I remember it correctly. So we have talked earlier today about the importance of policies, actions, and initiatives to keep people active on their daily lives. We also heard that we cannot do it alone. We can only achieve those objectives if there is partnerships, if there is work together. And the conversation today with Marie and Stephen will be on this, how we can build now partnerships on the ground to help people enjoy healthier and more active lives. So thank you for your attention and welcome. I think we will start with Marie, and she will share with us a little bit of their journey on getting people in Paris to move more.
Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here this morning with you and to share our strategy to make people move more. This is very important and key for Paris 2024. First of all, I would like to show you what is our vision, because our vision is very important. This is the first step, the first job that an ORCOG has to do. An ORCOG is an organizing committee. And thanks to the legacy strategic approach, you see the booklet on the screen just before, the IOC explained to Paris 2024 the importance to make the link between our vision and legacy. And our vision, you have it on the screen, we believe that sport changes lives. It's very powerful. It's a message we want to address to our people in our country, but also to the world. In all the journey of Paris 2024, we have this message on our head, and we are acting to be active on that field. And our ambition is to awake the athletes within each of us. It doesn't mean that we want to people in France be athletes for the Olympics and the Paralympics. We just want them to move more. We just want them to move 30 minutes every day, as the WHO recommend. This is important, and this is what we are trying to do now. So some actions we are already launched. As Mr. Barr said just before, he said that we have to go where people are. And so the three cornerstones of our strategy to move more are After schools, we need to go to schools and to propose programs to schools. We need also to propose programs to cities, and we need to propose programs to companies and workplaces. This is the three areas where we are working, because it's where people are and where people can integrate those 30 minutes of a physical activity every day, because it's a mantra. It's what we want to do at the end of the day. 30 minutes of physical activity for everyone, from the kindergarten to elderly people. So first of all, what we have done so far for kids, well, the President Barr told about it just before. We set up a program of 30 minutes of physical activity in primary school. I have to confess that it's not our idea. We were inspired by Denmark, so thank you to Denmark for this inspiration, and Finland. I don't know if there is some Finnish friend in the room, but you have already set up these programs in your schools, and it has been very inspiring for Paris. And so we propose these programs to our Ministry of Education. We begin the programs with in an experimental approach with some schools. We have already 5,000 schools which are doing it every day, but the President Macron announced during the Olympic Games in Tokyo in his press conference that this program will be implemented in all schools in France. So we have a good job, but a good ambition and a hard job to do. I just want to say to you what is the responsibilities of Paris 2024. We had the idea first, well, it's a first step, but we also producing some tools for the teacher to help them to set up the program. We provide some tools with pedagogical tools, but also we are financing a tool that we have on the screen, which is a bag with different elements to set up the activity in the schoolyard. It's very simple. You have this bag with all the elements, and you have also the files to explain what activity you can propose to your kids every day. So this is very important. We also mobilized our athletes. They are key ambassadors. Again, Mr. Barr told about the role model that the athletes can play, and they are totally mobilized on that program. It's important because they can convince teachers of the importance to set up this program. They are better ambassadors than us to say how is it important to move every day, how the recommendation of the WHO is for everyone. So with our capacity to mobilize the athletes, we are spreading this message all around schools in France. I will give you a rendezvous in 2024, and we will see if all schools are implementing this program. We have also a great platform, which is the Olympic and Paralympic Week every year in France in February, to communicate about what we are doing for the kids. And of course, this message about physical activity is every year supported during that week. And the media are engaged in the coverage of this event. And we have lots of schools engaged, and it's also a good platform to communicate about the issue of physical activity for kids. I will not go back to the pandemic situation, but you clearly understand that it was important before the pandemic, but it's more and more important today after the pandemic. Our kids are not moving enough, and this Olympic and Paralympic Week is, again, a good platform to send this message. Active cities now, where I think we are in the best place to talk about active cities in Copenhagen. Again, we are inspired by your city. Of course, this is a key element. And again, we are proposing some programs to cities. Paris 2024 launched a huge engagement program for cities. It's called Terre de Jeux 2024. We propose to cities to activate the games, the legacy of the games, And so we ask them to propose programs for their inhabitants around physical activity. We ask those cities to propose programs for free for inhabitants, and we also ask them to modify their urban planning to integrate active design. This is one of our key elements. We are working on an active design guide. We will promote it next month in December. We will do the promotion of it and we will present it. It will be a tool for the cities to decide active design development and active design plan, and it will be a key element, of course, in terms of legacy for the cities in France. So again, there we are pushing cities to integrate active design in their policy, the day-to-day policy, and we are also asking them to have a special attention to schoolyard, because you know it's a responsibility in France of the cities to build schoolyard, and we are asking them to integrate active and non-genré, it's in French for girls and boys, schoolyard, because in France we have this problematic that only guys are moving in the schoolyard and the little girls are just discussing around. So this program also, active design in schoolyard, is very important, and we are pushing strongly cities to decide those urban plan and development. This is key. You have some images of our proposition concerning schoolyards. Last cornerstone, workplace. Again, it's of course very important to propose some physical activity programs in the workplace. The first program we are launching today in November, and it will last all the duration of the construction of our Olympic and Paralympic village. We want that village totally emblematic about that program, and we launch a program where every people working on the village and the construction of the village has 20 minutes of physical activity every morning to begin the day. This is something perhaps normal for some of you, specifically in northern country, but in France this subject is only a recommendation for companies. There is a recommendation. You should propose to your employees to move every day, but it's not the case. And though with this village, it's an emblematic, of course, place where media will go a lot, and they will ask questions to the people who worked on this village, and we want them to say, working on the village changed my life because I spend every day participating at the program of physical activity, and it changed my life. I am better and in better health. I know my colleagues better, and this is a program that must be implemented everywhere. So the village will be our emblematic program, but we will propose to our sponsors to do so. So we have already discussions with all the companies that are sponsors of the games. And we also ask them to modify their headquarters and their places, their workplaces, to integrate, again, active design. We are also doing it for ourselves in our headquarters. So at the moment, we are working on it. The ambition is, of course, to encourage all the collaborators to move more, to take the stairs, to move regularly between meetings, not staying all the day in front of their computer without moving at all. So these programs of 30 minutes of physical activity will be implemented for the employees of Paris 2024 and for our sponsors. The ambition here is to integrate physical activity in the policy of the Human Resource Director. It must be in the HR policy. This is very important, and that's what we are trying to do. Here on the screen, I won't be long there. You just have to know that we have also lots of programs concerning the change of perception on impairment, of course, but also on diversity and gender equality. And last but not least, I would like to highlight the endowment fund we created last year, because it's quite new for an OCOG to launch such an object, an endowment fund, because this endowment fund has for objective to showcase and to encourage the stakeholders who are taking action. We want to showcase what they are doing, and we want to demonstrate the power of sport. Again, and I come back to the vision, it's the best tool we have to measure the power of sport and how sport can contribute to our society, contribute to health, contribute to diversity, gender equality, but also inclusion, but also employment. This is key, and this endowment fund has a huge responsibility to make this demonstration, and we are working hardly with the IOC and the OECD to measure those actions supported by this endowment fund to make the demonstration that sport can change lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. I'll pass the floor to Stephen to share with us a little bit of the work of WHO Europe in promoting healthy lives across the continent.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. My name is Stephen Whiting, Technical Officer for Non-Communicable Diseases in the WHO European Regional Office. Many thanks to the organizers and Paris 2024, and Marie, your presentation is really interesting. So I'm going to give a brief presentation on what we think are the areas that WHO are already working on that link well with the Move More strategy as part of the Paris 2024 preparations. So I work for the WHO European Office for the Prevention and Control of NCDs. Thanks, Tanya, for that introduction. So we're based in Moscow, but we're part of the Regional Office for Europe, which is based in Copenhagen. And the nutrition, physical activity, and obesity program are all based in Moscow. We support all 53 member states of the WHO European region, from Ireland, Portugal in the west, to Kamchatka in Russia in the east, and also including Central Asian countries to address the NCD risk factors: physical inactivity, tobacco use, alcohol, unhealthy diets. So we work in the promotion of physical activity within the framework of the global framework. So as mentioned, the Global Action Plan for Physical Activity was established in 2018. So that kind of guides a lot of our work. And we also have, WHO have updated guidelines on physical activity for all ages now, and a lot of special populations. And this kind of guides our work. This is the basis for our work to ensure that as many people as possible can meet the recommended levels of physical activity to protect their health. But in Europe, in the WHO European region, we also have a strategy started in 2016. So we're about midway through implementation of this strategy. It has recommendations across the 5 different priority areas. So leadership, it takes a lifespan approach, so children, adolescents, adults, older adults, and then monitoring and evaluation, research, so the supportive areas of this approach. So for the priority 2 in the WHO European Physical Activities Strategy, obviously schools are the key setting to promote physical activity of children and adolescents, physical education, active breaks during and after classes, and then extracurricular sports and connections with sports organizations. And we've collected from all EU member states success stories and good practices that we have published recently that we think could be useful for informing the implementation of the Move More strategy. Similarly, with adults, workplaces are obviously a key setting. We all spend the majority of our time at work. So we also collected similar success stories and good practices. We are also working on a toolkit for small to medium-sized enterprises, which is less than 50 staff. And in the EU, it's over 99% of companies are considered SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises. So we recognize this as a gap, and we're working with partners to develop a toolkit based on a systematic review of the evidence to provide very simple and practical guidance on what small organizations can do to promote physical activity in the workplace. Another example of how we could also collaborate on the implementation of the Move More strategy. And for active environments, by 2030, over 80% of people will be living in urban environments, so it's important that they're conducive to physical activity. We're all in Copenhagen, so we've seen how the successes that they've had, developing walking and cycling paths, multimodal transport, road safety, pedestrianising areas of the city. So this is another key area of our focus, and we're working closely with GEL architects here in Copenhagen with supporting other countries in the region. So this is another area that we could collaborate on. And so promoting in sports clubs, we're focusing more on promoting health-enhancing physical activity. We're developing a toolkit that countries can use to assess the policy and the policy environment at the national level to ensure that sports clubs are promoting health, not just competitive sports. And we have also, again, collected a lot of the success stories from around the region and healthy stadia. So this follows the WHO's health promoting settings approach. Healthy stadia are one of those. So promoting not physical activity, but promoting health in the stadium, outside the stadium, so through active transport, tobacco use prevention in the stadium are all part of that approach. And there's a European network of healthy stadia. Obviously, communication campaigns. For WHO, there are NCD Best Buy. Many countries are promoting physical activity and through communication campaigns as part of the European Week of Sport, but there's also very good national campaigns. For example, in the UK, the This Girl Can campaign, which specifically targets the increasing participation of girls and women in physical activity. So I mentioned already a few of these tools. We develop tools that we want countries to use to support countries. So the national audit tool, I didn't mention the Sports Federation Guidelines tool we're working on with colleagues. So collating a common kind of guidance for how sports federations can ensure that sports clubs are promoting health, not just physical activity and competitive sport, but also health in general. We're also working on brief intervention manual through primary healthcare systems, so a manual that primary healthcare workers can use to provide brief counselling and advice for patients, and then urban design and planning interventions. As I mentioned, we're working closely with GEL architects. And one of the key functions of our office is surveillance of physical activity, monitoring the implementation evaluation of the Move More strategy will the overall outcome is going to be the change in physical activity prevalence. So we have a good capacity in our office measuring physical activity prevalence changes in different population groups. So that's one other area that we thought we could collaborate on. We were also developing, based on science and some of the scientific papers that we're developing, we produce these smaller infographics and policy papers for policymakers, but also for the general public. And this could also be something that we will collaborate on. The collaborative networks are a huge facilitator for our work. So in our office, we coordinate the WHO European Health, the Health Enhancing Physical Activity Network, the HEPA network. It's over 180 research institutions, and there's around 10 working groups working specifically on different areas of physical activity promotion. So we're developing joint projects with these groups, and it's a great resource for the leading researchers and academics in promoting physical activity in the region. We also have WHO collaborating centres. These are research institutions that have been working with us for long term, usually 4 or 5 years, and they have the status of a WHO collaborating centre, and they're really a vital resource for us to scale out the work that we're doing and utilise their expertise of the academics and researchers working there. And third, physical activity focused network is the Physical Activity Focal Points Network. These are government-nominated focal points for physical activity in each EU country. And they're meeting twice per year before COVID, meeting twice per year, sharing knowledge, experiences for policy development and implementation, and also developing joint projects. One of the key outputs of this focal points network was the publication of the country physical activity fact sheets. We just published these in September. This is the third round, so 2015, 18, 21. So the information provided for these country fact sheets was collected by the focal points and submitted to by communicating with their national counterparts, and then submitted to WHO. We validated the information, had some follow-up, and then developed these country fact sheets that are a summary of the data that was collected. So we call them fact sheets, but they're more like country reports. For France, for example, it's 7 pages. It includes the physical activity prevalence data that was collected, also through active travel, policy development, which population groups were targeted by the policies, and also a range of success stories and good practices that they submitted, and we developed into these fact sheets. And they're all available online at the WHO website. And so I mentioned a few of these already, but we have collected success stories, good practices in different sectors, so sports, education, health, workplaces. This could also be a useful resource. And the EU, through the European Commission for the DG for Education, Innovation and Youth Sports, recently launched the Healthy Lifestyles for All initiative. That's in September. It's the same time that we launched the physical activity fact sheets. As part of the WHO commitment, we agreed to support national policy dialogues in each EU member state, using the data from the country fact sheets to support countries in national discussions to identify any gaps, new priorities, or just to improve policy implementation. So we've agreed to do that over the next 2 years, so that's going to be one of our focuses. So I have 2 minutes? Yeah, thank you. That was just in summary. I just wanted to give an overview of the areas of work that WHO are working on, the links with the Paris 2024 Move More strategy, and yeah, I think this partnership is going to be really beneficial, not just for supporting the implementation and evaluation of the Move More strategy, but also scaling out some of the collaborative work that we do to other countries throughout the region and other cities. So that's our goal, and thank you, and happy to answer any questions and looking forward to the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Just before opening the floor for your questions, to do a quick summary on what we just heard and some interesting common points from the two presentations. First one, the importance of having a clear strategic view, as mentioned by Marie on the case of Paris 2024, the vision and how the Move More strategy is really well aligned with the vision, and by Stephen on WHO action framework for physical activity and how all the actions derive from there. Second point, both emphasize is the importance of building awareness and strong partnerships to strengthen the message on the need and the urgency of actions and initiatives to improve the levels of physical activity in our cities and countries. Third common point is on how you both working to provide guidance with toolkits, working with SMEs, for example, to promote physical activity at workplace or with schools and bringing people together. And the fourth point in common, very interesting, is the importance of monitoring and evaluation and to have good data to prove impact. So thank you very much for these inspiring ideas, and we wish you all the best for your collaboration. And with this, I open for the questions from the public. I think we have some microphones that are circulating. Please don't be shy. Mr. Feli?
Thank you. Congratulations for your presentation. And my question goes to Paris. And then to Marie, it's great what you are doing on your program. And my question goes to the 30 minutes at school. What is your feedback? And my question is, who does the 30 minutes? The kids, you launch them in the schoolyard and they do what they want. Do you have some coaches? Because we understand that some kids probably will do the sport by themselves and some others not. So what is your feedback from your 5,000 schools? And my second question is more a communication tool. I've got some friends in France, and unfortunately on this famous schoolyard, non-genré, as you said, doesn't fit very well because people see it negatively, probably people who are too old to understand, but they see it negatively, saying they try to push the kids to a new social thinking instead of pushing them to practice sport, you know. So what is your feedback? Do you feel that you don't have any negative aspect about talking about non-genré, or you said, okay, we transform the schoolyard philosophically for a non-genré, so all the kids can do it, but we don't speak about it. We push the kids to do the sport.
Thank you for your question. Concerning the first one about the 30 minutes of activity, those 30 minutes are in the responsibility to the teacher. In fact, the teacher is leading the activity. The teacher can choose when during the day, he proposed those 30 minutes. And the kids, you know, the elements we are proposing, and also the pedagogical elements are in direction of the teachers. We want to convince them to set up this activity every day because we want them to realize the benefits they can have. Because it is demonstrated that there will be benefits about the concentration of the kids after this activity. They are more concentrated, more able to learn, and also they are in a better health and they are happier. This is what the kids are saying after the activity, because we made some enquete inquiries to see the impact of our action. So what is important is that it's a responsibility to the teacher to set up the activity. The clubs will not, it's not our recommendation, come in schools to set up this activity. It must be the responsibility of the teacher. But I have to confess that the Ministry of Sports and Ministry of Education sometimes is pushing the clubs to come in this activity. We are not aligned, to be clear and honest with you this morning, because we are here to share what we are doing and the good thing and the bad things we are doing. So we are not aligned with the Ministry of Education at that point, because we consider that it must be the teacher who must be the leader of it, because the teacher must be convinced about this activity. And the teacher must do it by itself without any other means than the little bag that I present. This is very important. We want the teacher to be autonomous on this activity because we want French people, in fact, doing those 30 minutes of activity, and the teacher themselves after the kids. So, as you understand, we consider that it's not the responsibility of the clubs to be support this activity for schools. There is other possibilities for clubs to come in schools and to propose to discover their sports, Olympic sports, Paralympic sports, non-Olympic sports also. But it's something else, and it's clearly not those 30 minutes of activity. Those 30 minutes of activities are about motricity and how people, kids can move. Concerning the schoolyard, yes, it's not... Every time you launch a new project, you have some positive situation and negative situation. The key things is that this schoolyard is good to encourage the kids to move, because there is some design on the ground, and they can do some motricity activity again, and they can do that, girls and boys, together. The situation in France is, to be clear again and to share you the situation today, is that football is the most activity for the guys, and so for the boys in the schoolyard. They are all practicing football. It's good because football is a great sport. We are world champions, so I can't say anything, of course. And I used to work for the French Football Federation, so of course football is important. But in the schoolyard, they need to move more, and kids, girls and boys, and not only the boys. This is something very important. They can play football in other places, in clubs, in the streets, in the kindergarten, whatever, but in the schoolyard they must be more active altogether.
More questions from the floor? Okay, I'll let you reflect a little bit. I have a question for Stephen. If you could give you some more examples of collaborations of your networks, and how this idea of the 30 minutes of daily physical activity has been picked up by other organizations in Europe.
Thank you. So the 30 minutes, we think, obviously, WHO guidelines are for 60 minutes per day, but the 30 minutes, if that's dedicated, in schools that's taking most children and adolescents a long way. So on top of that, extracurricular sports. So this is a really good start. I only know that Denmark has a 45-minute physical activity in schools. So these are, I think, the only two countries that I can think of that have this kind of regulation. No, yeah, there might be in other countries, but I know that Denmark, I think, started that 30 minutes mandatory. It's a good start to getting to the 60 minutes. For how WHO, the collaborative networks that we have, can support. So I think WHO having these multiple networks. I didn't mention Healthy Cities Network also. So WHO has a lot of convening power. The networks that I mentioned, a lot of researchers, academics, leading experts in the field of physical activity promotion. So we have this really good resource that we could contribute and in the implementation of the Move More strategy. But as for specific projects, we're already developing quite a few tools, and a few that I mentioned in workplaces, sports, schools. But there's a lot of potential for other areas, and I think we could, Paris 2024 and WHO Europe can develop these future tools. So once we have started getting into the nitty-gritty, we can identify new tools, new areas that are needed, new support for implementation of the Move More strategy, and then we can utilize that outside of France, so throughout the region. I hope that answers.
Yeah, may I add something? I would like to tell you, because I don't know if I have done it yet, but we ask the schools that are implementing those 30 minutes of activity to give to all the parents of the kids who are participating, a paper where it is clearly written that the recommendation is 1 hour. It's 60 minutes, in fact. The schools is taking 30 minutes, half of the recommendation, but we ask the parents to do the other 30 minutes of activity every day. This is very important because it's a way for us to talk to the parents directly and to promote the recommendation of the WHO. This is very important, and it is also key in our strategy to touch the parents, because they are inhabitants and they need to move also themselves, and for them it's 30 minutes, but they need to be convinced that 30 minutes at school, it's not enough, it's a start, but they have to propose 30 minutes themselves, and they also have to propose sport in clubs, because the total recommendation is 1 hour per day, plus 2 activities in clubs per week. So it's important for us to deliver this message to the parents.
Any more questions from the floor? Okay, so I'll fire another one for Marie, about some specific examples of programs. And I remember from this summer, an activity that you have done with swimming in Saint-Saint-Denis. So if you could just share with us your ideas on the importance of these activities and how you're working with this area of the Greater Paris that will be hosting a significant part of the events of the Games, and there is an area of social priority in France, and how sport can help to address social inequalities in in this part of the Great Paris?
Yes, thank you for this question, Tanya. This program is quite emblematic about what we want to do for the Seine-Saint-Denis. Seine-Saint-Denis is the poorest department in France and is the last department concerning the rate of inhabitants and swimming pools. So, as you understand, when you organize the games, this is a question that people will ask. And that's why we decided to build only one sport venue, which is an aquatic center. This aquatic center will be built in Seine-Saint-Denis. But most of all, this aquatic center will not be forever an international sport venue. It will be a swimming pool for inhabitants. And this aquatic center will also give the possibility to set up swimming pools in some cities of Seine-Saint-Denis. At the end of the day, we will leave in Seine-Saint-Denis 9 swimming pools in 2024, and they will be open in 2025. We cross fingers. But if we leave swimming pools, we need to learn to swim to the inhabitants, because there is no swimming pools today in Seine-Saint-Denis, they don't know how to swim. The rate is very low, and specifically for the youth. And this situation was worse because of the pandemic, because all the swimming pools were closed during 1 year, and the little part of kids in Seine-Saint-Denis who had the possibility to learn how to swim, they didn't learn at all last year. So last summer, we proposed a program with 4 swimming pools, temporary swimming pools, in 4 cities in Seine-Saint-Denis. And these programs was for free to learn how to swim to kids from 4 to 12, and also for parents. And these programs met a great success. We had more than 2,200 youth that learned how to swim, which was quite significant for this area. The French Swimming Federation was our partner to set up the coaches. And because of the success of this program, we are thinking about an implementation next year with a larger, with other cities, more cities. In Marseille, for example, where the situation is the same, and where we also are going to organize, the football tournament and the sailing competition for the Olympics. So next year we will have more swimming pools, temporary swimming pools, in order to learn how to swim to more kids. This is an important program for us, specifically in this social ambition we have.
Thank you, Marie. I think our time is out. Just if you would like 30 seconds of concluding remarks before we have a break. Stephen, any final words?
Yeah, thanks. I think just going back to the 30 minutes per day thing, it's a real, like in Australia, physical activity is a lot. You need to be able to play sports, and you need to be able to travel to go to sports events and training. But having 30 minutes a day for everyone that goes to school, I think school is mandatory in France, so it gives everyone that at least part way to meeting the recommended levels. So I think it's a good it's a great way to address social inequities in physical activity opportunities. So I think it's a really great opportunity, and yeah, in general with the Move More strategy, we're looking forward to working together and collaborating on that. Thanks.
Last word to say that with Damien, we will be there today and tomorrow, and we will be very happy to discuss with you. As I said, we discovered this idea of 30 minutes of physical activity in a summit organized by the European Commission. We heard the Danish and the Finnish explaining their program, so that's how we thought about it. So I'm sure during those 2 days we will learn about you, and probably it will be inspiring, and why not setting another program born here in Copenhagen? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Marie, for having reminded us how Paris can be revolutionary, Stephen, for having demonstrated the nitty-gritty, and Tanya Braga, for having moderated very beautifully. Let me say with the next slide that we're having, as announced by Tanya, a coffee break. During the coffee break, make sure you capitalize in talking to people. That's why Smart Cities and Sport is here in Copenhagen. There is also, right next to this door, in the room next to it, there is the Danish Business Center, where there are startups and companies that are showcasing their products, their innovation, their services. So make sure you use that. May I kindly invite you to come back at 11:30 sharp. We're doing great on time, so please enjoy the coffee break, and a round of applause again, for our speakers. Thanks a lot.